manner within the guidelines of the airline you're working for, but you do have a lot of freedom. You're the captain, you're the pilot, you're the FO, you know. You are in charge of that aircraft. Whatever needs to be done, there will be decisions to be done, and not everything's in the manual. It's going to be your experience. Sometimes you will make decisions that are not in manuals. And I like that freedom, that I don't need to see the boss every day and he's not right behind me going, what are you doing? You don't see him. If you do it right and you move it right, you have no issues. It's really great. That was the freedom for me to be in aviation.
That's a great starting point. So if I recall then, you kind of took the shotgun approach, right? You got all your private instrument, commercial, multi, all that knocked out pretty quick. And did you do any flying before you came outside of that, or came straight to Wayman?
I had just my 1 hour intro. I did my primary training at FXE at ATP. I did the 0 to hero, 7 months through everything, all the way into my CFIs. Due to my age at the time, that was my 3rd career, starting at the age of 38. So I really late shifted, and I had to get it done very quickly. Just had a newborn that was the 3rd child, and that was my only option at the time. They were one of the only places doing that. Wayman everywhere now has added those type of programs, which is great. So even everyone that I recommend, it's straight here at Wayman.
And we appreciate that. So that's a tight timeline, you know, and I don't know if that's even possible now with the way that examiners are and things like that, but we definitely push, and we've had some great successes to get the program done about 10, 11 months or so. But you came to us, and because you'd had that life experience, you kind of came into it from a different angle. You know, you've got a job to do, you want to get it done, you want to get home to your family every night, and you were very, if I recall, very meticulous, but also filling that schedule. So how was your CFI time with Wayman?
I was not a part-time CFI. What do I mean by that? Guys, I flew every day 8 hours to that number. And then I did ground. So I was done and was at my 1,500 hours like 12 months, 12, 13 months I was done. I slowed down a little bit because due to timing when I was starting my next job, but if I get those hours in and I get them done and I get what I need, I'm going to make myself attractive, right? As my resume, and what I need to do is going to be attractive. If I come in and I'm a part-time CFI, which is okay, everybody has things they're balancing, I understand, but for me, I had to get it done quickly because I gave up my own business, which is a decent paying job, to I'm CFIing, so hell of a pay cut, and I still got to run my house, and I got to get back to a real job real quick. So for me, I had to work much as I could. Eddie knows I was here 6 days a week.
Yeah, and we greatly appreciated your, you had just a great work ethic about it all, and all your students did wonderfully. And you just really integrated well into the school. Like you have a natural leadership, which I think is important on captains. And one of the things that we try to work with, and with Alpha Eta Rho and with our waypoints, is trying to generate that leadership sensibility in students that are coming through. Now, one of the things that, of course, always impressed me is that you're one of those people that jumped from a 172 into a 737. Now that is like going from the 2nd step to like the 8th step, right? What's that transition, that jump like?
Not easy, guys. I am by no means what I would call a super pilot or the best pilot ever. No. I've had many a struggle and hurdles along my pilot career. When I was private pilot getting ready, I have failed check rides. There will be things that you're going to hit and have to climb over that wall. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Of course, we don't want a failure, right? But just make sure if you do, you've learned from every one of them. That I did, that I introduced into my teaching to kind of make sure my students didn't make the same mistake I did. Or as an instructor, I made sure that I taught what was going to be stressed and made sure that my students were ready for that check ride. They didn't have any holes. I make sure and cover what needed to be covered so they were comfortable, and I trained them to when they were comfortable for that check ride. I didn't force them too early, and I also didn't fly them too long, right? Everyone's got to be motivated to get to that goal. So if you have that goal, I need to fly you just enough so you're comfortable, good, and you can accomplish everything you need to do there. That was important.
Now, I'm so glad that you touched on that, because it's a common thing. People think, failing a check ride is the end of the world. And of course, it's a big thing. But what I find in talking to recruiters is own up to it, right? It wasn't the examiner's fault. It wasn't the airplane's fault. It wasn't the instructor's fault. Be able to communicate what you learned from that experience.
Absolutely, that's the way I've addressed any failure that I ever had, and I never had any issue with it. As long as you understand you failed, I'm sure there was a reason the DPE had to fail you. There was something that you didn't do properly that day, something you didn't quite do to standard, and that may not be your normal day, right? We do have bad days, it happens all the time. It happens in the airlines. Guys are already type rated in an airplane, they come in for their annual check, things go a little wrong. It does happen. That's okay, all right? Just make sure you stay confident, right? And that's all you have to do. If you stay confident, and bigger than being confident is your attitude. If you take it as a positive experience, and you continue to, hey, I'll fix it, help me with it, ask questions, what did I do wrong? What am I doing wrong that I'm not fixing it? And all airlines, all places, if you have a good attitude, will take you very far. Now, if you treat that as a bad experience and you have a negative attitude with it, you're probably not going to go very far. And if you're in aviation, remember this. This is the smallest community ever.
Tiny.
Don't burn bridges unless necessary. I don't advise it. You will always meet and come back to somebody that you may have worked with before, somewhere else, whatever it may be. Next time you see them, they may be the pilot sitting across the table from you deciding whether you get the job or not. Keep your bridges well, keep everything tight. You can disagree. Of course, not everyone's going to like everybody, but keep it civil, keep it professional, do your work. And you'll always benefit from that later on. Even if they see you later, well, I didn't like him personally, but you know what? Good pilot. Never had any problems with a pilot. Yeah, I recommend him.
Yeah.
Right? No one's perfect at these jobs. You're not going to be the best pilot in the world, and I am not. Jumping from a Skyhawk to a large jet immediately in a 7.3, yeah, very difficult. Trust me, I was little story at Miami Air. That's the first large jet I flew, 7.3. First flight, rotated, took off. We're climbing through cruise. Captain looks over me and goes, "You're on the runway still, aren't you?" I said, "Boss, I'm in the hangar. I am so far behind what's going on here, just trying to deal with paperwork, trying to make a radio call." And, you know, as you progress through, you guys, maybe private instrument, CFIs. I was a CFI for years. I mean, I flew everything here, taught everything here, multis, all of it. I did all the FAA check rides when I was here. So I think I'm pretty good. Yeah, first radio call with 4 instructions, really fast because they expect you to be a professional. Yeah, I fumbled through that. It takes you, you're gonna get to a new step every part of your aviation career. As long as you keep a good open mind, positive attitude, and you will get up to speed. It takes a second. Any new step that you get, it is a little bit different and you gotta catch up. And as long as you're willing to learn and try and just keep at it, you'll get there. It all takes us different times. We all learn at different paces. But attitude good and keep trying, you'll get there.
Aviation is very humbling. I know, when you get your private, I know a lot of our private pilot classes here for the most part. When you get your private, you feel like Top Gun, like you've got it all done, and then you crack open the first day of instrument ground school, like, oh, okay, there's all this other stuff. And the same repeats for commercial, and repeats again for CFI when you all of a sudden have to try to explain things, let alone the first time you sit, in a turbine aircraft and things are coming at you at several hundred miles an hour. It's a very humbling experience. But I want to take a step back because you mentioned the network, and aviation is absolutely tiny. It's a very, very small place. And you always got along. You got along well with everybody, and I know you've built a great aviation community around yourself. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about that and kind of the impact that's had on your career.
Yeah, all friends and networking and everything that happens through your aviation, you're going to meet great DPEs, etc. Keep in contact with everybody. Be nice with everybody. Always reach out when you can. I always come to some of these Wayman things when I can and I'm around.
Great.
You'll see me at the expo. I have kids. They want to come and see all that too. These are great places to meet everybody. There's so much aviation things going on all the time. I always try to make it sun and fun. You're going to see old friends, etc., anyone you may see, and you'll see new people in the community. You might just bump into the one guy, you guys click, and he's like, "Hey, how many hours you got?" That's literally how I got into Miami Air.
Yeah.
All right? Dumb luck. I'd rather be lucky than smart. Somehow I seem to be smart and not that lucky, but sometimes I'm lucky, all right? Raul, another one of the instructors at my time, just happened to teach the guy who was taking over Pan Am at that time. He was a student from Japan. He was a business guy, had no degree in, and nothing to do with aviation other than a business person. So they sent him over to run Pan Am now, and he's like, well, I got to learn how to fly so I can at least talk with these guys, at least understand what they're associated with. So he did his private with us here. Raul happened to teach him. When he was all done, my buddy Raul, he tells him, hey, come on down to the simulators, because he ran the Pan Am building there right on 36th Street in Miami. There's a large training building. They have lots of sims, 7.3, 7.6, 7.4, all kinds of sims now. Anyways, he goes, hey, bring a friend too if you want, and you guys come on down and use a sim. I was just the dumb friend hanging out that day. I sat down in the sim. At that time, I was getting ready to go to the regionals. I had already interviewed in one place, was kind of heading towards Sky West, I think, at that time. And I sat down in the seat. Man, Raul having fun. Guy sits down behind, run the sim. He says, all right, boom, 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 do this, do that. Puts us downwind, start flying, right? Okay, we're flying. Flying around, come back around. He goes, how many hours you got? I go, like 1,600. He goes, all right, I'm going to back you up. Fly this ILS. Backs me up, flying ILS. I don't know, had a flight director. I could stick a flight director at least, right? Flew the flight director, kind of broke out, and I went, well, I guess I moved the power levers back. It should land, right? Just a plane. They're big, but they're the same. Landed it okay. Looks at me and goes, all right, give me your resume. I thought, no way in hell. This guy was chief pilot of Miami Air. He just happened to be running the sim. 2 weeks later, I got a call from him to come for the class. That's how I got in. It was just dumb luck, right place, right time. And I flew, and I didn't fly any better than you guys. You guys all know how to fly. You all got your private, or you're close to your private. There's nothing, everything you learn in your private, take this with you. People don't explain this. Everything you've learned in your private, you know how to fly already. The difference is, later on, how well you scan and interpret the mistakes. But you already know how to fly. As a private, you do. That's what you guys need to work on as you progress and you become a CFI and you do all those other things that you're going to do. It's your scanning and noticing mistakes and correcting them. That's the difference in pilots. You know how to fly. You know, when we push down, the houses get big, you pull back, they get small. You already know how to fly. It's your scanning and interpretation of what's happening and making those corrections very quickly. That's the difference as a pilot.
That's a great story. Now, I have to say, though, it's not dumb luck. Opportunity comes when you're prepared, right? It's timing and being prepared, right? So he was prepared. He had done his hours. He was a great pilot, and it demonstrated when the opportunity came around. And aviation is a small world. You'd be surprised how many captains, chiefs are doing double duty, right? There's plenty of captains who are also instructors on the side or volunteering with LPA or OBAP, and you're in a booth with them for 3-4 hours, you know, having fun and cracking jokes, and at the end of it, you're like, hey, you know, really hanging out with you. Same thing. You got a resume, where are you at, all this kind of, you really get to know people as you volunteer and kind of spend time in the space. Now, that student, I'm trying to recall his name right now, funny enough, I was in Japan this summer and I tried to get a hold of him. He's no longer with Pan Am. But when we walk out, he gave us this little crystal that says, thank you for Wayman Aviation, because he did get his private pilot with us. He came from zero aviation to running Pan Am Academy, one of the most storied schools and airlines, to leaving a private pilot with us. And he's still in the aviation space now, consulting and doing those kind of things. Got it. So that's great. I didn't realize that was the connection. That's just wonderful.
How I ended up in the sim.
That's beautiful. I liked how you were saying, so you shared us that story about just giving it full and you're back in the hangar. How long realistically until, you know, you were maybe not ahead of the plane, but running alongside it?
Making that jump to your first jet. For me, I started to get comfortable, I would say, about 6 months in. I start to feel comfortable in the jet. Not meaning you don't know what to do. Of course, you're going through training, you're going through sims, you have a lot of things to do. But you're at a pace that you're comfortable at your job. When you're in those first couple months, you know, you're still kind of scrambling just to do your job, be it paperwork, be it on the radio. When you're flying, even more, right? You're flying now, you got to do everything, and you got to interpret ATC. And then I flew at Miami Air, not the easiest place to fly. It's not US flying. I'm not flying regional, normal US, exactly the same rules and regulations we fly here. I flew everywhere in the world. You name it, Africa, Asia, all of Europe, everywhere you could think of, I probably tapped and touched. So it was very difficult learning the job. There were so many different things, and you would get to so many different controllers that are speaking English, but not the English I know, so it's difficult, right? And then different terminologies. You guys know, you're around here in this area and you're dealing with a controller, and then you go up into North Florida and you're like, excuse me, what did you say, right? He might have a little Southern accent or something and throw you off. Sure. And you're like, wait a minute, I didn't even understand that. So all of that takes a bit, and then the job, the paperwork, staying with the plane, backing up the captain if you're the FO, vice versa if you're on that other side, right? You're in charge, so you got to make sure everything's working. But for me in that first jet, somewhere between that 3 to 6 months, I started to become comfortable at my job. I didn't master the jet then by any means. Probably a year or two in, then yeah, I made that as you would think. I could fly that plane. I knew everything about that plane, which is very important when you guys do learn how to fly. Learn from the old crabby captains that you're not going to like. And, you know, he's going to be a mean old dude and probably military, and that's how he grew up. But watch them fly. When they do something that you're not familiar with, ask them. I noticed you did this. Why? Why are you flying the plane this way? I didn't see anyone else do that. You will learn from them. That's how I sped up in aviation. I'm going to ask questions. Don't be a wallflower, right? Sure. You want to be a captain, you want to run these planes, you want to fly them, you got to ask questions. Be humble enough to ask questions. It's okay if you don't know, that's perfect. If you ask them questions, you'll normally open up. That old military captain becomes kind of nice when he goes, hey, this kid's all right. He's asking me questions. He cares about his job. He's trying to do good here. Learn from them. Take their aviation experience, because there's no way you're going to learn what they learned in 30 years unless you ask questions, right? You got to learn it faster. You got to try and become a better pilot by asking those questions. And once you start asking questions, 99.9% of the captains will gladly pass some knowledge to you.
So 2 points on that. And the first one, mastery. Mastering your aircraft is ultimately what your goal is. Whether you're in the 172 or a twin or a 737, you want to become the master of that cockpit, because ultimately your life depends on it, right? Right now you're sitting with a captain who is hopefully a master of that aircraft, right? And you're learning as much as you can, but ultimately you want to be in that seat, and you need to be the master of what every switch and circuit breaker does. And you know, when you walk in that first time, there's just so many switches and dials and lights. But you'd be surprised, 100, 200 hours in, you know where everything is. We had a red light go off the other day. I'm like, okay, that red light means this. I'm looking at circuit breakers. You start figuring it out, putting it all together from experience and from asking those questions. There are some captains that are naturally chatty and will be like, do this, what do you know about that? But I'd say I would lead to the majority are more the quiet, silent type, right? And what are they comfortable talking about? The weather and airplanes, right? Every pilot will talk about the weather and airplanes. You can talk about the weather and then just that, you know, what is your preferred procedure for this? You know, defer to them, ask them questions about what they're doing. And you do open up, in many cases, an encyclopedia of this airplane, because those captains might have been flying this equipment for 10, 20 years or longer, thousands and thousands of hours, which you as the green pilot, you have an opportunity for a couple hours to sit with this master of his craft, right? Which is what we all aspire to. But you lent into an interesting part. You have truly traveled the world with Atlas Airlines and Miami Air, going as far as the 747. Yeah. Tell us some stories, all that.
Great stories. Miami Air, small airline, just normally 8 to 10 planes, about 100 pilots. But flew all over the world to over like 400 different countries, was excellent. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned to jet. That's where was my next big step in aviation. Obviously you go through initial training, become a private and all that, you get CFI. That's kind of your next step. These are the next learning phases, right? Private instrument, commercial, you're kind of wandering your way through, you figure things out. But when you get to a CFI, all of a sudden now, well, wait, I gotta teach this. I think I understood this, but wait a minute. When you go back through, you kind of learn like, oh, I thought I knew how to do that, but I didn't. Now I do. Right. And that'll be like a real next phase for you guys, that you're gonna learn a ton of things about what you thought you knew already, but now you're gonna relearn it and go, okay, now I do fully understand it. And then that first jet's gonna be a big step for you. And you're gonna learn a lot on that first jet. I owe that to Miami Air, taught me how to fly jets. Absolutely, what they taught me was really well. It's translated all of my jobs all the way to American. I know how to fly a jet. What I've been taught initially is right on par with everyone's teaching and through. Atlas Airlines, awesome. I got to touch a 7.4. Not everybody gets to do that. Very few will.
The Queen.
Yeah, they bought the last two. They were built. There's no more being built. That's it. So if you want to fly a 7.4, I mean, I think Lufthansa and British Airways have a couple still, but they're probably going to be going away. Cathay and a few of those places probably will only be Atlas. They're going to be like the last cargo carrier that's probably going to have those planes. Best plane I've flown so far. I have not flown the 777 or the 78. I plan on it. Those are the next two that I'd like to tackle. And then I did hear of a 79, so I wouldn't mind retiring on that if that gets built. Yeah. But all the places you get to go, it's great when if you're younger in life and you don't have kids and all the other family stuff. Oh, it's wonderful. Go fly. You will go to places you will never think of going. You're going to see different places that you never thought you even wanted to see. So in that sense, wonderful. I owe that to Miami Air and Atlas that get me all over the place and see all kinds of different things. That was awesome. And now I found myself at American, my last place. I'm good. I'm home here in Miami. I do still get to fly international, which was important for me. Being at the Miami base, we tend to fly south. So I do South America, Central America, and all the islands, so I'm happy enough. I'm just kind of waiting until a little bit of seniority and stuff, and I can slide to the larger aircraft.
Beautiful, beautiful. And actually, you mentioned that. If I recall, we've got quite a few students in the Caribbean. If I recall, you're an island guy, right?
Yes, my parents are originally from Trinidad and Tobago.
Nice. Yeah. All right, good. We got a nice shot in the back. So that's, I mean, here come full circle, and as we kind of come to the end of our interview portion, you've got some students here right at the beginning, private. I see a couple stripes, instruments, a few instructors. What are those? That something you wish you had known, or somebody had told you when you were in your initial training?
Well, I had great mentors. So anything I had along, I would reach out to a mentor. So that would be my best advice as you guys go through. Reach out, and I'm not saying peer may not be a mentor too, right? Someone who's a peer may have just did landing last week and he may have figured it out and he'll give you a couple little bit of advice how to do it. Ask someone who's been doing it a little longer, another CFI or a commercial pilot. Reach out, get those questions asked, figure out some techniques, find your own. You're going to ask techniques and they may have a different way of explaining it. Ask a different instructor. I know when you guys come through, because I did it too. I came through and my instructor, he was God, and he is. He's your instructor, right? So anything he said, that's the only way to do it. Yeah, to a point. But also ask another instructor. Ask a senior instructor. I was a senior instructor here. A lot of students come up and ask me certain things. Or I would fly with them if they were having trouble along the way. So if you're having trouble with your instructor, I always use that as a technique as an instructor myself. If I wasn't getting through to someone, no matter how hard or mean I was, and I wasn't getting through to them, I may have him fly with another instructor. Say, hey, I'm trying this, but he's not getting it the way I'm explaining it. Maybe take him out for a flight, go for a few hours. That generally worked and did a really good for the student. Solid on him, and he saw another instructor. Because what happens, a little tendency, they're going to stick with that instructor. You're going to want to fly. Don't do that. No. Get another instructor, shift around. I know Wayman shuttles you guys around, but sometimes you end up with the same instructor. Try to reach out and fly with different instructors and learn from everyone there, and then you'll come up with your own.
Yeah. Just so those of you that are starting your flight instruction, we try to make the point of changing your instructor from private to instrument to commercial, those 3 big chapters, so that you learn different techniques, maybe correct some bad habits, and it's easy to fall kind of into a pattern with somebody, especially if you've been flying with them for 40, 70, 100 hours, right? And so we like to break that up and switch up and say, well, why do you do it this way? Kind of like flying with a different captain, because you'll be flying with tons of different captains. You definitely don't have your pick of who you're flying with, right?
I've been at American for about a year and 4 months now. I've flown once with the same captain.
Yeah, there's something like
You don't. There's 15,000 pilots.
Right, I think something like 2,000 of them are just at the Miami base. Yeah. That's a lot of pilots.
At least.
You could literally fly with somebody every year for a couple of years, every day for a couple of years and not come across the same pilot.
Yeah, you're probably not going to see him again.
You're more likely to run into him at Flanagan's or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. So at this point, we'd love to open it up to Q&A, questions that you might have. Yes, go right ahead.
So you said you flew 7.3. What's the process like? Like, if you process to get into training, actually flying aircraft the first time with or without passengers?
You'll be in the sim first, so you guys are going to have the sim, right? And in the sim that you're in, they're level D, so that simulator constitutes the airplane, right? Quite a while ago, used to actually fly the plane, but you're going to do the simulator. So the first time that you carry passengers will be the first day that you really touch a real airplane. The simulator is 100% basically real. The only thing I would say in a simulator that's not quite real is maybe when you're landing. It's very similar, but the visual cues and everything that you take in as a pilot will be much more evident in the real aircraft. In the simulator, they make it as real as they can. Now, as far as procedures, flows, and how the aircraft flies, comes down, turns, all that is real. None of that will be any different. The landing, final part of that landing flare and stuff, you'll probably learn it generally in the real aircraft. They're going to have you down to a basic landing profile that you'll understand when to reduce your power, how many degrees to pitch the nose up, etc., to come with a successful landing. But you're going to bring in a lot of other information the day that you fly that first time, the real aircraft. You will probably be flying, paying passengers and or paying cargo, whichever way you guys end up. But yeah, the first time you fly the plane, first time you touch it, there's going to be passengers in the back. You'll be with a really good captain. It's going to be a check airman. I was a check airman at Miami Air, so they're really experienced captains. They know their plane. They know how, they know the limits of their aircraft all the way to the end and all the way to the back. So anytime you get with a check airman, don't sit there and be quiet. Ask a million questions. They're the best guys with the planes. They know the most about them. If you have little things that you may have went through in training and got one answer one way and another way, ask the check airman. And he'll show you in the manual. The good ones do. So if he shows you in the manual and he tells you, then you know the right answer, right? Because you're going to get very structured when you get to the airlines, which I tell you guys all, I know everyone in here is probably like, man, I can't wait. I'm going to get to a jet. I'm going to do this. The best flying you guys are doing is right now. Ask Omar. I used to tell him that. Didn't believe me. Ask him.
Definitely the most flexible.
Best flying is right now. You're the captain. You decide where you're going. You decide how you fly the plane. You only have a few checklists. Right? This is the best. You see the most, you have the most fun. Afterwards, it's like work. You're not looking out the airplane. You think when you're landing in Hong Kong or something, you're coming, you get to look out the airplane as you're flying in? No. I got to fly a plane. I can't even look outside. Okay? You're lucky if you're the third guy in the cockpit, you get to look outside a little bit. But guys flying, they're on the plane. So the most fun you're going to have is here. Enjoy it. And just get ready for that next step. But that's the normal progression. You'll have a ground school probably a month to 2 months. Then you'll go into the simulator, which will take a little bit of time, a few weeks, depending on where the airline is and how long the simulators are. And then the first time you touch the actual aircraft, you're going to pay customers.
That's funny you mentioned checklists, because I know, especially at our entry level, you struggle with that 1 2-page checklist. But when was the last time you had a 2-page checklist? My gosh, they're entire books when you get to the big ones. And as far as the simulators go, they're impressively realistic. I remember sitting in Pan Am's Saab one, and they have those airplanes have a door, and there's a little kind of like fold-out ladder. And of course, that door is not there in the simulator. That little ladder is there, so they try to really mimic it as close as they can.
Simulators are amazing. They all work. The radios work. Everything works. It's 100%. Simulators are great. Only thing you don't have is your iPad moving map, so you actually have to taxi.
All right. Do you have any other questions? Yes, in the back.
I haven't had much questions, but I like hearing your life story because, like, in a lot of ways, parallel to mine. So I was spent about 10 years, 11 actually, in flying engineering.
Okay.
And then I decided, like, I want to not kind of hold 40 years in a cubicle, but actually, go for passion. Moved here from New York a year ago.
Excellent.
And now I'm actually working my commercial, working my private.
Nice.
Also in kind of condensed period of time. And I'm 37, and I'm waiting for my first newborn, not her, but first in 4 weeks.
Got it. Congrats.
So
Congratulations.
Parallels. So it was so great to hear that, it can be done even at age 30.
Absolutely, yeah. Aviation is moving so fast. There's no, oh, you're too late to aviation. No, if you got the right attitude and you're willing to work hard, you'll be fine. And you have plenty of time. Don't worry at 38. Just with the way the aviation is right now, with how many doors are open, you're going to be fine. You have nothing holding you back. Just get through your training, keep with it, keep working hard as much as you can, as fast as you can, and you'll get there easily.
So actually, let me ask a question that I
Yep.
saw
Sure.
So what do you think of doing traditional route of CFI up to 1,500 hours versus like getting into this like smaller turboprop gigs that you can still fly 30, 45 minutes with those hours that way?
I might be biased because I was a CFI, but not everybody has the same path. A lot of people get to the airlines or wherever they need to their own way. However, there's nothing faster than CFI. And I'm sure if you're a good student here at Wayman, I am sure they're going to give you a job here immediately. You already know the school, you already know the program, you're off and running, and you're building hours. The other non-traditional way, trying to get a gig somewhere in here, is a little more difficult. Depends on your connections and things like that. You may be able to. There's no right or wrong way to get it there. One of my good buddies, he did it that way and came in, and I yanked him into Miami Air when he could. James, who I'm sure came and spoke before too. Yeah. So there's different paths. I suggest the CFI because it's the quickest, fastest, easiest. Not only that, later on you distinguish yourself on your resume. You are a CFI. You have been teaching. So when you get to the airlines later on, if you've already been a teacher for umpteen years and then you want to be a check airman or a check pilot, you already have experience teaching. If you have no experience teaching, it's going to look different on that resume. If you've always been teaching all the way through and you've been a check airman at various airlines along, obviously at the last one you got, you already have the experience. You're going to distinguish yourself to be able to get those special jobs you want. Also, being a CFI, you're going to know your stuff. You're going to understand how to teach and not. So when you get to the airlines, you have a little different perspective of how you look at things. Also, later on, management jobs, etc., are available to you. They usually, anyone who's a manager, trust me, they've been a check airman or they were a teacher, they were a CFI. That's just the normal progression, how it goes through. So it's advantageous to be a CFI. Not saying that's the only route. You can be successful other ways. But I would suggest CFI. It works really well. And while you're doing that, there's no reason you can't still be looking for another little gig that maybe you get the weekends and you get a little taste of that flying too. Nothing wrong with that, right? And once you're let loose and you got everything, you know, however you can get there, get there. Just get to those hours as quick as you can.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. Congratulations, upcoming baby. I myself am now a second, third career kind of change up. And it takes dedication. It takes throwing yourself into it. Being a CFI is the tried and true path. The other route takes a lot of networking because most of those small operators are, you know, maybe 2, 3, 5 pilot operations, right? So it's kind of getting out there, hanging out at the FBO, drinking an absurd amount of coffee and saying hi to everybody. That's kind of what it takes. And a lot of people struggle with that side, you know. At the same time, some people should not be flight instructors. It's not for them, right? Even though technically they've got the check, they passed it, they've got the licenses, they become flight instructors for a couple of months and then quickly realize it's not for me. Right? So everyone's got to find their own path, whether it's towing banners or giving flights down the beach. There's a lot of ways to go about it. We've had a lot of successful students tow banners.
I had a really good pilot from Miami Air. That's how he did it. He towed banners straight out, and I'm like, what?
It's tough.
And he did the jump from a banner to the 732. So yeah, just very different. Everyone has their own path.
Absolutely.
CFI is a great route, but everyone does have their own path. However you get there, it's fine. I think CFI will be the most efficient. As your age and what you're trying to do, I think that's the best way to do it. That's the way I did it. It happened a lot quicker that way versus any other way.
Absolutely. And as we get here to our time, we'll take a last question.
How was your transition from the right seat to the left seat on the 737 and going back to the right seat again now?
Good question. Once a captain, always a captain. But that being said, remember your job and your place in the cockpit. If you're going to be the FO that day, you're the FO. So make sure you're supporting and doing everything that you need to do for your job. Don't worry about his. He has his. You might be better at his job than he is at his. Do your job. If there's a moment of safety or anything that's going wrong, or you can offer some help, by all means do that. Transitioning from FO to captain is a big leap in the sense of how you're looking at the job. As an FO, you kind of look at the cabin and you go, I can do what that guy does. All he does is sign the paperwork. He gets paid twice as much as I do. Yeah, but he's doing a lot of different things that you may not be realizing. One important thing, having a business background, which may do really well for you, managing or interacting with people. I'm gonna let you guys know, I know some of you are pilots, and some of you pilots kind of introverted, don't talk that much, don't do things and interact so much. Be a little extroverted. Might not be your thing, that's okay, but learn how to do it. Watch people who are successful at that and being a manager, because that's what you are later as a captain. You got to manage the flight attendants, you're managing the ground crew, you're managing the gate agent, you're managing maintenance. You're bringing all these things together. They rely on you as a captain. You're coordinating all of this. So you're not getting the plane ready. Hell, you don't even probably know where you're going. Your FO does. He's going to load up that box for you, get everything ready. If he's a good FO, which is part of the FO part, make sure you are a good FO. Don't show up to an airplane playing on your phone, doing something else. You know what you're supposed to do. Get to that airplane and get it ready. That is your job. Oh, I got to do all the work. Well, yeah, that's your stage right now. Do your job. If you cover your job, he'll cover his job. You guys will have a great flight. And if you work that way, you'll be fine. Always be respectful. Just remember that. As a captain, you might be right. There's nothing wrong with being right. So I've had many instances and stories where I've probably been right, or the captain may have been doing something wrong. Do you think I go, well, that's wrong, Captain. It's not that way. No. I go, sir, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm confused, because when I went through in training, I think we do it this way. And then he'll look over and go, oh, yeah, you know what? That's right. That was my previous airline. Sorry. I'll fix it. You think that goes over better than, Captain, that's wrong. You don't know what you're doing. Well, I think it goes over a lot better. So just always remember that. Remember the seat you're in. Do that job. Don't worry about his job. Now, as me being a captain previously and going back to an FO, am I watching what he's doing? Absolutely. I'm still on this cockpit. Isn't that what you are as an FO? Your main job is monitoring and assisting the captain. You'll see that in every job description. You're monitoring and assisting the entire time. That's what you should be doing. So you should be monitoring. Don't be the captain because you were one before. Handle your job, but monitor and assist. If something's going wrong, speak up. That's the most important thing. So transitioning back and forth, for me, I don't have a big ego. Even people might think I do have, I probably do have a big ego, but I put that aside. It's okay, I'm the FO today. Park that. I don't need that today. I'm working as the FO, I'm supporting my captain. This is what I need to be doing and what I need to be working on. So for me, transitioning back and forth, not that big of a deal. Also, when you see someone who interacts well with people and stuff, take little notes of how they do that. You have a good manager, you'll know what a good manager does and a not good. It's a good team leader. You'll see a good team leader and a bad team leader. Take some notes from the good ones, see how they interact with people. Because unfortunately, as a pilot, you're going to. You're going to be a manager. That's an important part of your job. Very important when you become a captain. So that would be the kind of differences between the seat in my summation.
Good. That's an excellent one, Omar. Thank you. Actually, could I ask you to go by the front counter and pick up the Air Expo flyers so you can pass them around? Sorry. Just want to make sure that everyone has one before they leave today. So thank you so much for visiting with us today. You know, it's
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always exciting to have our alumni come in, especially one that's had, you know, your trajectory has been wonderful. And just to see so many of the Wayman alumni, you know, at everywhere you've been, at Atlas, at Spirit, at American Airlines, now Delta United. That's one of the wonderful things about being part of an organization like ours, a school like ours, is the network. 37 years and thousands of pilots flying all over the place. I love to make those introductions when I can, kind of catch somebody at an expo, like, oh, have you met this guy? He's flying over here. It is really one of my favorite things, and one of the things I miss about being here every day, and one of the things that I try to do all the time. So again, those of you that are interested in getting more involved with the school, to kind of with volunteer opportunities, with networking, with finding mentors and such within the school, Alpha Eta Rho is the way to do it. It's our vehicle to form community here inside of these walls. I know that we come, we go, we're on airplanes, and sometimes we're just crossing each other in the hallways, but Alpha Eta Rho is the time to sit down and kind of get to know your peers and have more opportunities in the aviation space. So let's all give a big thank you to Capt Farley Mahabir.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll be around, and Omar's got a great story too, so please ask some questions. Feel free to buzz around for a moment. We'll hang out. I want to make sure everyone gets a flyer for the expo too. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.